Sonic Frontiers is here, which means it's time for a new wave of the Sonic cycle. Following the trend of games from 5 years ago, Frontiers boasts its brand new open zone style of gameplay, where instead of a linear hallway, you get a wide open world crammed with tons of floating rails, climb walls, and bounce pads. Let's speed into the mechanics since, Sonic game, speed. To cut to the chase, this is the slowest Sonic has ever felt to me. Akin to forces, it kind of feels as though the floor is magnetized, resulting in a heavy-feeling hedgehog. There is still boost in this game, but it winds up being less boost to win, and more so being boost to play. You are painfully slow if you are not boosting, but even if you are, it still kind of feels a little weak. And not just because it no longer deletes enemies in front of you. Sonic can slide, bounce, double jump, stomp, and even drop dash, but the physics are very weird, and so drop dashing will frequently stop you on slopes. It just seems as though I'm fighting the stage while I'm trying to go through it. Sonic also stops on a dime now, which I'm sure is to help platforming, but it just feels wrong because he doesn't even really skid. He's just done running. But those are mostly issues in the cyberspace stages. You see, the game is broken down into a loop of exploring the open zone, collecting the collectibles to have the buddy of the zone tell you to collect collectibles from enemies, to collect collectibles in cyberspace stages, to collect the collectible Chaos Emeralds, to collect them all and become Super Sonic to fight the boss of the zone. Cyberspace stages being bite-sized bits designed to be more akin to classic Sonic, and hot take, but to me they're actually the worst part of the game. Visually, they looked great, but they just weren't very fun to go through. The stage designs in them felt very hollow, and not just because half of them are Green Hill Zone. I'm not sure, but it seems as though in cyberspace there's different physics. Perhaps because of the magnetized stage, but Sonic definitely controlled a lot more on rails. I've never really been a fan of modern Sonic and classic-styled side-scrolling. It always just felt wrong, because classic games were designed around momentum rather than boost. There are a few more modern classic stages, but even those seem to boil down to homing attack and then get on a rail. So I'm gonna stop talking about these because they're bad to me. Sorry, not sorry. Let's get into the new. So as mentioned, the main draw is the open zones, which at first I giggled about when it was mentioned in an interview, but it's actually pretty fitting. You'll frequently find little spots that require some kind of interaction from Sonic, whether it's get somewhere fast, solve some puzzle, beat a baddie, hamster wheel, or draw a circle. It's a nice way of getting you used to all the game mechanics and also just some neat little challenges. The rewards are generally the story progression collectible, but you can also get power-ups in the form of red and blue seeds, or definitely not Koroks. Both can upgrade Sonic stats like attack, defense, and speed. Yep, Sonic doesn't start out at his fastest, which is definitely a bold choice. However, he does have the ability to max it out momentarily if you fill up your ring capacity. At this point, Sonic does go quite fast, but admittedly can be a little difficult to control for some of the more precise things like using the Psy Loop, which is one of the new combat features, and it always feels weird talking about combat in a Sonic game. Psy Loop is pretty straightforward, minus the fact that you never use it in a straightforward path, and instead use it in a circular motion to draw a penis or Among Us for sick nasty clout. Completing a circle will cause an attack which will damage enemies, break shields, and if used on empty terrain, digs up rings. When the trailer was first shown, everyone assumed combat was mash attack to win. And it is, mostly. Defeating enemies and clearing objectives will get you skill points and unlock new abilities, and once you start getting some of the combos, it gets a bit better, but it is still pretty basic. One of the abilities you can unlock is an auto combo thing, which I feel is pretty telling about the depth this kind of lacks. It's not terrible, mind you, but most battles do tend to boil down to mash attack in your hardest hitting combo until death. Bosses at least mix it up a bit, forcing you to use the set mechanic and then only being susceptible to damage after doing this specific move, and they had some nice variety too, so I frequently fought them whenever I saw them. Except for this tower thing. This was not good. This did not work. You do have the option to parry as well, but it isn't like a window. You just hold it down and you parry whatever. Zones also end with a Super Sonic fight, which really kind of showcases that, since they tend to wind up forcing a parry to get hits in. These, however, are pretty hype and definitely tickled my fanboy funny bone. But I also kind of clipped into the boss a lot. And most of his attacks just kind of whiffed. But the song slaps! Speaking of, the game has a lot of charm. The animations for fights and cutscenes are pretty great. It seems like they did want to go for a more mature tone, since not only is Sonic's voice deeper,
looks like I'm the only one who made it out of that, whatever it was.
but the characters tend to have deeper conversations instead of just the tried and true formulas for each pair. As mentioned, the zones have a set character that you buddy with, allowing Sonic to spend a lot of one-on-one time with characters he doesn't always interact with in a lonesome setting. The first zone hosts Amy, and I was actually really excited to see the two of them interacting without having it just be, "I love you, Sonic." Shut up, Amy! Shut up! However, they don't tend to, do much in the cutscenes, other than talk. Plus, they frequently reference other games, so if this is someone's first Sonic game, it'd probably be confusing. Despite not being the biggest fan of modern Sonic games, I still love Sonic, and I was frequently smiling and getting nostalgic seeing some of these interactions. And it may just be the large amount of copium I inhaled, but I kinda think that they might be setting up for a new Sonic adventure. There's different minigames scattered around outside the Not Shrines too. Some of them are set in story mode to unlock a Chaos Emerald, but each world has a purple portal that'll lead to a purple pal. Big returns and allow Sonic to do a fishing minigame. It's pretty bare bones. Just tap a button to hook and once to reel him in, but still, any game with a fishing minigame can't be all bad, right? This is definitely an odd title. Despite the complaints, I'm still having fun with it. It really is just a blast to run around in the open zones. Despite going fast being tied to boost, you can still zoom and change some movement options together. It was bad in select cyberspace stages, but the drop dash is super fun in the zones, but it also infuriated me, because when you drop dash down a slope, you gain speed. There is slight momentum. Most of the game's speed tends to be capped or locked. Boosting down a slope is the same speed as boosting up a slope. Boosting off a ramp sometimes just locks you back down to the ground and other times sends you flying. A lot of actions tend to limit you, like jumping for instance kills momentum. Even light dashing stops your speed instead of maintaining it, so you'll slow down if you dash mid-boost. Maybe I'm just spoiled from playing Sonic Utopia, but I feel like a lot of the weird gravity in this game could be fixed if you could just maintain speed. I'm curious what the world would be like where the constant boost pads weren't necessary. Maybe there will wind up being some mods to fix that, because Sonic fans are nothing short of amazing when it comes to modding games. But even without them, as I still mentioned, it's still pretty fun to run around. Sure, I wish the floating rails and platforms were a bit more thematic, like how hard would it have been to really put like some ancient hover-looking stuff on the bottom of rails? Plus, in every zone, they are identical, and as far as I could tell, there weren't any like zone-exclusive activities outside of like a bird you could glide off of in one of them. At least the cyberspace stages had some unique elements to them. Ultimately, I'd say the game is probably a 6 or 7 out of 10 for me. There is a lot of potential here, but the weird physics, bugs, and constant tutorials kind of weigh it down. Probably could have used another year in development. When it works, it feels good, but when it doesn't, it's painful. It's a Sonic game, but it loves stopping you. I mean, the default option is to stop and freeze Sonic if he sees something interesting. The game will have characters in a cutscene say, "We better do the thing," and then a menu pops up saying, "Do the thing." I feel like a lot of people are also going to toss it aside because admittedly the first zone is kind of rough in the beginning. If you are a Sonic fan though, I think you'll love it, and I do feel like this could draw in new players, but I can also see critics tearing this game apart. Sonic shouldn't be so limited to start out, because I think it's going to alienate a lot of people like it almost did me. I also played it on the Switch, which is by far the weakest version, but I don't think the physics and stuff would be drastically different on PC or anything. I will say the game ran surprisingly well on both handheld and docked mode. I didn't really get that many like slowdowns, but there were a slew of pop-ins. They tried something though, and it makes me hopeful. I personally wish that instead of cyberspace, they just kind of had like bigger levels sort of tucked away in the open zones, and that the open zones were a little more thematic. I mean, they kind of have those, but they're only like 10 or 30 seconds long. I also probably would have enjoyed them more if it was just better physics in cyberspace. Legit though, if this game had Sonic Utopia physics, it'd be a lot better. Go play that fan game. It's funny too. That's my second comparison to a fan game, because I guess at the end of the day, this sort of feels like a fan game. Take that how you want. I'm also curious, how do you feel about Sonic games? Do you like this kind of more weighted gameplay? I honestly don't know if I'm being unfair and wishing that we could remove all these boost pads and just have Sonic kind of be fast on his own again. Also, for future reference, Sega, it'd probably be a safe bet to have your final trailer planned be your first trailer shown, because holy wow. Compare the recent trailer to the first showcase of the game. Probably wouldn't have gotten as much flack.